welcome to the Vaulting Voices podcast, a very special New Year's edition. I am Justin Akers, and I'm joined with Dr. Angel Storm. Good morning, Angel.
Good morning. How are you doing today, Justin?
I am excited about the new year.
Me too. Me too. Absolutely. It's been a
There,
good 3 days or 2.5 days so far.
well, every year, it seems like we come to the end of the year, and it's like, if I can just make it another week, another few days, the turn of the year is going to bring, just such a shift. And oftentimes it's just just another day. And so we have to understand the seasons of the Lord. But this year has been different. This year, I have really felt, was a supernatural shift in the spirit at the turn of the year. And I believe that's exactly what it's been. But having said that, I'll be honest, like 2020 was the longest 10 years of my life. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
2021 was difficult. 2022 was better, but still hard. But I got to tell you, 2023 has not been a bad year. It's been a really good year. I've seen God move in so many ways, and I know you have, but I'm still excited about 2024.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. It's interesting because it's like the anticipation that I have for 2024 is not because of the dread of 2023, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
2023 was a great year. I actually told you, I sent you a message at one point, like, I just feel like I'm just like coasting right on into this next year, not like trying to get away from 2023. In fact, I could have done that year again. Um, but I do feel like such anticipation over 2024. And for me personally, God has even spoken about things that have occurred in 2023 that are never going to occur in 2024 for me. And so I absolutely feel that momentum that you're talking about, but not in a way of like, get me out of this year. 2020, we all just wanted it to end, right? Like, get me away from it. But in 2023, I just felt like, 2023 was a great year, but 2024 is going to be an even better year. And for that reason, I'm excited for the new year.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it, because 2020, I mean, we had so much chaos, so much just chaos.
Mhm.
So by the time we come to the end of the year, I was literally like counting down the minutes, just please let this year go. And I didn't even want to go to sleep before midnight just to make sure that the year turned. I mean, it was just a difficult year, but there's been, I like the way you put it, this momentum of 2023. It's actually been a momentum of the last couple of years where there's been just a shifting, and it's kind of like a ship. A ship doesn't just make a hard right turn. It takes a long span of time for a ship to actually make that course. And that's what it's felt like, is there's been a course correction or a redirection, and it's taken a couple years. And 2023 has been that place of really coming into that alignment to it. And I tell you, at the end of 2022, or could have been the first service of 2023, I was closing out worship here at the church, and I was declaring. And it's something really amazing happens in that moment. So many times, it's like I can just step into this box where there's just a download of the Holy Spirit. And so I saw a term bridge, but it was perpendicular to the road,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I heard the bridge is open.
Mhm.
And so I declared it over the church, and I kind of moved on. I knew it was significant. I knew it was powerful. Declared it with the great expectation, but at the same time, I was confused because it looked like the bridge was closed, not open. But yet I heard the bridge is open, and I reached out to you about that, and you sent me a message back, and you're explaining where you're from in Wisconsin, how literally you have to schedule your drive around
Yeah.
the term bridge, because if not, you're going to be stuck in traffic. And when it's open, this is for the supply and the resources to be released. And when you told me that, I was like, that's it. This is a year of resources being released. And I know, personally, and here at the church, that has been exactly what it has been. If I could pinpoint one thing to 2023 here at the church, I can say that it's been a path of unexpected resource and unexpected opportunity, and it's just very exciting. And now that momentum building into 2024 it's really built a lot of anticipation in my spirit for what is to come, especially as we build through the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember when you had that word, and I thought that that was so profound because I did feel like in 2022, it was a year of reconnecting and
Mhm.
getting into perfect alignment with your connections. And so that made a lot of sense that, hey, if you did all of that, now you're in the place to receive and hold and steward the
Mhm.
resources that were coming because of those connections. So, and it's been so fun to see that happening with your church and the expansion that you're doing on the property. That's one of the coolest things that, for me personally, that I get to witness and see how God is really just aligning every single thing piece by piece and step by step. And it's just so exciting. But yeah, I felt like that was such a good word for 2023, and I felt like that was evident in multiple sectors
Mhm.
of life, you know. And now in 2024, I mean, it's, you know, the word says that we go from glory to glory, and I definitely feel like that's the precept upon precept kind of thing. And so 2024, just really excited for. I believe it'll be unprecedented.
You mentioned some of the expansion here at the church, where we will be building a multi-purpose building, and this is something that's been in the plans for a little while now, and there's been so much difficulty in getting the right people to do like the plans and the groundwork and so forth. And in the midst of this, we actually had someone in the church contact us and say, I was praying and I feel like we're missing a step. I feel like we're jumping to this, but there's something that needs to come first, and
Wow.
that's a new road into the property. Well,
Mhm.
right now, the way our church is located, it's in a residential area, and you have to come through the neighborhood to get to our property or to get to the church. But we own 96 acres, and our frontage property is not developed, and it's along. It's not a highway, but it's a main road that leads into town and is actually considered to be a bypass to the highway. And the expense of doing something like that is pretty major. I didn't realize how major until we got into it. So in October, I believe it was, it must have been October, I reached out to a friend of mine who does this kind of work. And he said, "Man, I'm sorry, but we're booked up for 8-9 months. I couldn't even touch it until probably next summer." And he said, "But let me give you a name of another guy." So I contact that guy, and that guy tells me, "Man, I am so busy. I'm doing a job over here. I'm doing a job over there. I really don't have time to take on another job." And I said, "Well, I heard you're busy." He said, "Well, who did you hear it from?" And I told him. He's like, "Let me come look at it." So he comes and looks at it, and he said he would start in December. Well, he ends up starting that week in October. And so they have been working diligently on our road. They have completely transformed our property. I've been so impressed with what they've been able to do. And as of the end of 2023, they had they had all the dirt work done, and everything was leveled, everything was nice, but that was it. We had no surface to it. And the building, they were able to dig down, and they actually dug all the topsoil off, dug down a foot, and laid a bunch of good soil, good foundation dirt for the building pad. And the reason I'm going through all this is not to brag on the progress of the church, but it was so prophetic to me, because we had the vision, so we knew where we were going, but we had not seen anything happen. And I've been fighting to try to make something happen and make something happen. And then all of a sudden it began to just unfold so easily. And I mean, it literally, things just began to fall into place, and it has, I don't want to say morphed, but kind of morphed in the way that it's been building. And now here we are, we're at the place where they have the base surface down, subsurface is finished, base surface is being finished, and we'll be asphalting in a few weeks. And that is so exciting to me, because what's happened in 2023 to me, there's been a building process over the last several years, but 2023 was about circling out that promise where you can see it and you can almost touch it, but not quite. You know, you can get a piece of it, but you can't see the fullness of it. And 2024 is about coming into that fullness of so many promises, so many visions, so many prophetic words beginning to manifest in 2024. And it's just an extremely exciting time.
Absolutely. I completely agree. It's a really exciting time. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, where your church actually got to walk out the exact prophetic word of the Lord over 2023, 2022, 2023, and now entering into 2024. It's amazing.
And I tell you, my parents founded the church.
Yeah.
And my dad passed away in 2003. My mother co-pastored with him from the very start, and she has. My brother actually started pastoring after my dad passed away. She co-pastored with my brother, and then I began to pastor in 2000. I don't know, 2010, 2011, something like that. And she's co-pastor with me. She oversees. And so we've been able to work in ministry together as a family. And so we were all walking the road the other day. Myself, my mother, my brothers, their kids, our wives, and we're just walking through there and tracking it up. But we were looking, and it was it's just so profound. And one of my brothers said, Dad would be so amazed and so proud of this. So the vision was given to he and my mother years ago, and now we're seeing that begin to come into fruition, because the vision, or the promise of God gave Abraham a promise, but the fulfillment of it, the completion of it, it wasn't going to happen in Abraham's day. And God told him that it was for his generations. And one thing that we need to understand is whenever we have a promise, or whenever we have a prophetic word, it's not just for me, it's for my generations. It's for not just my physical bloodline, but also my spiritual bloodline, those that I can be a spiritual father to, those that I can spiritually impart to. And it is literally for the bloodline generations and also the spiritual generations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important, because the nature of God is just to multiply, so he never does one thing and is like, that's the end of it. It's always that thing carries the life force in order to keep that going. One of my favorite concepts of creation is thinking about God creating Adam. And when it says he breathed into him, it means he breathed in all the breaths of all of mankind ever, into that one thing. And so that's exactly the nature of God. That's who he is. He's going to just replicate it, duplicate it, multiply it, and to keep that testimony of that facet of who he is going.
The first time I heard that, I had not studied that. My brother was ministering back, I don't know, 15 years ago. And he was talking about the breath there being plural. And I could just see it, man, God breathing into Adam, but that breath, that life force just going through humanity, through the generations. And that's one thing we need to, I think that God has been working to break the paradigm that it's all about me. We fight for something and we close ourselves into this box. It's not about me. It's not even about this generation. It's literally God establishing something for generations down the road. And we need to understand that everything we do has a generational impact, good or bad, but it has a generational impact. And I think that I don't know, there's just a real excitement for a new paradigm shift coming to the church in this season. A new vigor coming to the church in this season, a new excitement. I do believe there'll be warfare. I believe the warfare is going to increase. I believe that we are going to see, personally, corporately, and on a national and global scale, I believe we're going to see increase of warfare. But this is completely different. We're not positioned like we have been before. 2020, there was a lot of warfare, but it was a defensive posture. It was the enemy coming at us. 2021 was much like that. 2022, I had a word at the beginning of 2022 that what we establish in the next 6 months will set the course for the next 6 years.
Yeah, I remember that.
I've really kind of had that stirred in me the last couple of days. Because what we began to establish in 2022 was victory in warfare. And it was that perseverance through attack and the trust in the Lord when we couldn't see a way out, and that has set the course. And now we're coming to this place, this time of a release of that, and it's I don't know. By the time the podcast is over, I'm probably going to say the word excited somewhere around 150 times. But that's I mean, I am truly, sincerely excited about this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Yeah, and on that note, you want to go over some of our words?
Yes. Why don't you take off with that?
Okay, sure. The overall word that God gave me was triple A, and in the natural, there's a triple A service that comes and like rescues you. You know, they come and help you out when you're stranded. They come and get you the materials that you need and so forth. And um, the three A's, the triple A that God gave to me for 2024 is alignment and acceleration. And when I started to have this word, actually it was, it's interesting because sometimes you experience something not knowing this is now going to be a lifestyle.
Hmm.
This isn't just a season. This is now getting established. And several months ago, I noticed that personally, there was just things shifting for me where I didn't have the same appetite for things that had normally never bothered me before. I'll just give you an example. This is so small, it sounds crazy, but like store bread in the bag in the store. I can't even look at that. Honestly, it makes me wonder, like, how is it able to sit in there? Because I make my own bread and it's like bad after 2 days. And so, but it was like so profound to me because it wasn't just like, oh, I don't want to eat that. It was like almost disgust of like, I don't want to even look at that. How could we be putting that into our bodies? And so this has been going on for me for a few months where that's just one example, but multiple things like this where it was like tolerable before, or maybe we never even noticed it
Mm.
before. It's like you just go to the store and you get the bread from the store, um and for the alignment piece, that's what I feel is like there is a more perfect alignment to every part of your life, to your finances, to your physical health, to your spiritual walk with God, to the alignment of your generational blessings, things that somebody else cultivated the land for you to have the harvest, for you to have the fruit for every single part of your life. There is a deeper alignment that must happen,
Hmm.
or you don't you miss the entire thing. You miss the entire thing if this exact perfect alignment, these small incremental shifts. And again, these are not, I believe, for most people, these are not going to be big issues. I think these are just small things because I do believe that the past 2-3 years have been this purification, this refining of people's hearts. And you had a word about, well, was mostly just about deliverance. You remember
Hmm.
when you were talking about that for a long time, about
Yeah,
people needing to
a
get
whole
like,
year. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I do believe that was the season. And so now what's left is these small shifts that need to shift in order to get into this perfect alignment, this perfect plan for what God wants to do for us and give to us in this year. In 2018 going into 2019, I had a dream right, I think it was either the 30th or it was the 31st. It was right at the edge. And in the dream, I saw a big semi backing up to the loading dock of this building. And I saw that it was not all the way aligned. It was just a little bit off. And so when the doors opened, the truck was in the right place, it was at the right time. The door was open, but what was able to flow out of the truck, it was as soon as the truck door opened, it was all of these blessings
Mm,
coming through into this building. But because it wasn't perfectly aligned, there were some that got, shoved off to the side, so it never made it into the loading dock. I had this same dream, and this time the truck was perfectly aligned, and it was showing this exact specific transfer of everything that truck was bringing into the new year. Perfect. Like nothing was wasted, nothing was missed. Every single thing got to exactly where it should go inside of the building. And I thought about this dream when I was thinking about this year,
mm,
because it's these small things, and it might not even look like it's that far off, but in the dream, I saw you were missing a ton of blessings. Yes, there were still great things that you were able to get, but your life would have been completed had you been able to receive that entire shipment. And so I really think this alignment is going to ultimately have the impact on the acceleration. But before I talk about that, I wanted to, because you had the word alignment as well, which we were very specific about not sharing words, or listening to other people's words leading up to this. And so whenever I was listening to your message about, you were talking about the gears inside of a lock, inside of a
yes.
vault, which I also really love that image. But that's exactly what I'm saying, is like, if you are not in those perfect alignments, a little bit isn't like a little bit off doesn't cut it. You know what I mean? Like that, it's the bone and the marrow. It's one small amount off, and you're cutting the other one. So I think alignment is super important this year.
First off, your dream, you had that dream about this, ideal shipping, everything
Yeah.
getting to its place on time. You had that in the middle of a shipping crisis. The supply chain was still struggling when you had that dream. And
Wild.
that's amazing that in the natural, we're having a supply
Mm,
chain crisis, but God was showing you He doesn't have a supply chain crisis.
that's
Uh,
exactly right.
Everything's going to be on its right time and its right place.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you can see the comments. My brother is commenting on there because he had the 3 A's as well, with
No way.
awakening, alignment, and advancement.
That is incredible. I just love hearing how we're all interconnected. We are all hearing the same the same thing. I just love how God works and how beautifully interconnected we all are. That's amazing.
Now, I will say this. I mean,
Wow.
you've interviewed Marcus on your channel,
Mhm.
and of
Mhm.
course, he and I do a podcast as well. But right now, he can't speak, so it's just you and I, so I can say what I want. Um, it was so hard the last 2 weeks because he kept on trying to bait me into conversation about what the Lord was speaking to him, and I'm just sitting there like. I mean, I'm not saying anything, and he kept on trying to get me into it, but I did not want to prematurely open that up. I had this time, which is why we didn't do the podcast last week. You and I
Uh-huh.
both
That's right.
felt it would be better to wait until after the first. And
Mhm.
so anyway, yes, alignment. The About 2 weeks ago, I was closing out worship again, and the Lord speaks to us at any time, especially in those times of prayer. But there's something very special that God's doing with me in stepping up to close out our worship service. This is a very unique time right now, and I can actually feel it. I can feel my voice change. A couple weeks ago, I was the worship team's going. I'm singing with the worship, and I'm not the best singer, but I love to sing. And I could actually feel my voice change when I got on the stage, and it was harmonizing with the worship team. And I was like, wow, I don't sing this good. How is this happening? But I stepped behind the pulpit and I can see. So what I saw was, I've seen it in a movie, and it was when they were unlocking a safe. It was this massive vault, and the camera zooms in and goes into the lock, and you can see the gears in the locking mechanism, and you can see them begin to turn, and when they all begin to align, and it's this systematic process. This one turns, and then this one turns, and each one is turning each other, and the tumblers begin to move back one by one by one, and then that big locking pin unlocks, and then the vault is able to be open. And I saw that, and in the moment, I just declared what I saw. But then when I went back and began to kind of, meditate on this, it began to make so much sense. There have been so many areas of our life. There have been so many things that have been locked up. And not only as we align, but as we align, the seasons are aligning right now. The elements that God has placed in motion, because there are appointed seasons, appointed moments that God has, and these things are all aligning right now in this season, and it is unlocking the things that have been held in a vault or held away for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with that, and I love that that visualization, because that's exactly what I feel as well, which is that if you've been partnering with whatever the word of the Lord was for that season specifically, it's all of those little things getting removed. It's all of those things getting out of the way for this huge vault to open up. And, that also brings us to that acceleration piece, which is like, it seems like it's been maybe not even moving or going very
Hmm.
slow in moving. But this year, absolutely, I feel so much acceleration on it. And actually, the way that I saw specific people that are in my life, specific people, how this was going to affect them. I'll just share a couple of examples. There's a couple in my church who years ago when they got married, they're in their 40s, first marriage, and I had a word for them that their first children will be twins, and they've not had the babies yet. And so I saw them specifically where they're going to have their promise is going to be fulfilled this season. And if you don't know what has been happening and how people have been partnering with the word of the Lord in their life, it's going to look unfair or unjust to those who are looking. And I was actually sharing this with the husband of this couple on Sunday. He said it's so interesting that you would say that, because what he had been getting was Matthew 20. And if you don't mind, I'll just read
Yes.
a couple of this. This is a parable Jesus is telling. And it says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And going out about the third hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And he said to them, 'You go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right I will give you.' So they went. Going out again about the sixth hour and the ninth hour, he did the same. And about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing, and he said to them, 'Why do you stand here idle all day?' They said to him, 'Because nobody hired us.' He said to them, 'You go into the vineyard too.' And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first. And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. Now, when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat. But he replied to one of them, Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last worker as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity? So the last will be first and the first will be last. This parable is exactly what I saw, is that there are going to be people promoted on purpose in front of the people who have borne the burden of the day, who have worked in the scorching heat, and who believe something is due to them that was not agreed upon. In
Mm.
other words, their blessing is still a blessing, but it's their perception of why didn't they get more, because they are going to watch somebody be promoted in front of them where they have borne the burden of the day. They have been out working in that thing longer. And if we don't understand how we are all interconnected, we're never going to understand how this benefits us, right? We're still going to be looking at, well, how do I get what is mine? Or believing that we're due more. And what I also saw was when I was getting this word first, when I was receiving the word from the Lord, what I saw was people actually working all day, planting, and I just saw them being in the shadow all day.
Mm.
They're so close to the presence of God that they were working there all day, but it was a hidden space. So it was not in the open. It was not where other people would know what was happening. But I saw that the light, it was like the shadow got moved and the light was there, and now you saw this huge tree of life in that area for this person, where they had been faithful in their laboring. They had been faithful in cultivating this thing that was so close to God's heart, that was in the shadow. It was in the deep secret presence of the Lord. And when God chooses, it says at the right time, I will make it happen. And what I believe that scripture means in this, in relation to this word, is that when it's time for other people to see what you've been doing in secret, God will make it happen. And
Mm.
people are going to be amazed at how much fruit there is in this area. Why did it happen so quick when, I've been struggling for 20 years, or I've been working on this thing for 10 years, and how come that person just does it instantly? It's because you weren't there in the presence. You weren't there in the secret. You weren't there when this
Mhm.
was getting day in and day out fed from this person's soul, and this person was being transformed in that place. And so I think that we're going to see a lot of accelerations happening like this, where it looks like that person doesn't deserve it. That person doesn't even, and I do deserve it, right? Is ultimately the dichotomy of this situation. And I believe it's the further opportunity to refine soils on both sides of this. The person who's watching and who thinks I deserve it and they don't deserve it, it's an opportunity to cultivate the soil of your heart deeper. And for the person who is promoted what seems to be instantaneous, it's, do you use that as a point of pride to
Mhm.
show off in front of the people who have been, in fact, breaking the ground for you to have that instantaneous breakthrough? Or do you know that it's by the goodness of God? Because in this parable, he also says, it's mine. I do with it what I want. This is my blessing. It's my generosity. It's only by the grace that we have any kind of thing at all. And so I think the acceleration is not just like a moving forward and a fast pace and all of this. It's actually this instantaneous
Mhm.
promotion, but in front of those who have borne the burden of the day, in front of those who have been the breakers of this thing that you're about to step into.
Where's your heart? This is an exposing of the heart.
Mhm.
So I love the parable that you shared right there, the ones that began to work early in the day, number one, their focus should have been on what they agreed on and them getting what they were supposed to. Their focus should not have been on what somebody else was getting to begin with. It's kind of like working in a job. Somebody works a job and they want to know what somebody else gets paid. Well, that's none of your business. Their salary was agreed between them and the boss. Yours was agreed between you and the boss. If you have a problem with yours, go to the boss. That kind of mentality. But spiritually, it's the same thing. Actually, it's even more spiritually, because we should get so excited for someone else's blessing. When we see someone else blessed, when we see someone else reach a new level, when we see someone receive a prophetic word, all of these things, it should excite us that that's happening. When God's given them a message, when God's speaking to them, all of this, it should be exciting to us. And so this is a revealing of the heart of people, because ultimately, God sees past the outside. He sees past all the rhetoric. There's some people you deal with, and you never know what their agenda is. They'll tell you, they'll compliment you, but you're always wondering, why are you complimenting me? There's something behind the compliment. There's a motive, and we can't stand those hidden motives. Well, God is revealing and exposing those hidden motives. And you actually had a dream. I don't remember if it was last year or year before, but there was the pipe work, and there were these places in this pipe system where it got real condensed and it was real hard. And then after you got through the hard space, it opened up into something very easy. And the Lord was showing you that when referring to connections with people, you don't know them in those hard times. You really begin to see them in the easy times. And that made so much sense to me, because we always think, just the opposite. We think that in the hard times, someone's really exposed. And to some degree they are, but that's a place of desperation. That's a place that they'll make commitments to get through the hard time and so forth. Yep. But you really know when things are good, how they treat other people, how they react. Do they still press into God when things are good? Because they pressed into God when it was hard. But what about now that it's good? Are they still pressing in? Was it about the relationship, or was it about getting through the hard time? And so when we see some of these blessings come up on people, and I think it's so imperative that we understand, you do not know the battle that someone else fights. Mm-hmm. You do not know the hours they've spent in prayer. You do not know the amount of times that they have bit their lip when they could have said something. You do not know the amount of times that they stood firm for someone else, that they made war in the spirit for someone else that nobody knew about. You don't know the seeds that they planted, but you can recognize the fruit that comes forth. And so if God is bringing forth the fruit, we shouldn't argue with the fruit. That's a challenge to God. And I think that I think you're right. I think that there are going to be people that are jealous and envious of people that they see fruit coming forth, because they don't understand the seed. And in fact, many of them have not sown that same level of seed through the years. And they're really going to be upset when someone else has, quietly and privately, and that fruit begins to come forth, and they're going to be jealous that they don't have the fruit because they didn't sow the seed. You can only reap, what you've planted.
That's right.
And let me go back to one point that you made about the fine tuning. You said what was tolerable before is not going to be tolerable. Because I think this goes hand in hand with this, but that's so interesting, because we can get numb to things. There's things that we just, it goes on for so long that we get tired of fighting those things, or we get tired of trying to remove this or remove that, and we just kind of become numb to it. And right now is the time that God literally is fine tuning. I used to I do some work on the side with a gentleman. He would call me when he was shorthanded, and he would go into paper mills, and they have these huge rollers. They're about 30 foot long, I believe, and about 5 foot tall. They I don't know how many tons they weigh, but this rolls out the paper, and there's a system of them. There's several, and the paper comes through there like that, and it flattens it and smooths it and all of that. But we would go in there and take measurements down to the thousandths of an inch and 10 thousandths of an inch, because those small, and I mean just absolute small changes, literally save the company tens of thousands of dollars through a year. Because once that thing is so heavy and it vibrates, and over time, when it gets misaligned, I mean, in the slightest, nothing that you would ever know was there. It didn't affect production. It didn't affect, as far as, the
So
same
good.
product is coming out. But because of the way it was misaligned, it would require more from the machines. And
Mm.
that small misalignment would just be enough to cost tens of thousands of dollars through a year. So they would hire these alignment companies to come in and make small incremental changes. And I mean, I remember sitting on the back of one of these rollers, and it's burning up, and I've got this scale, and they're doing the measurements, and literally they come in and they put a plate in on one corner that was thinner than a piece of paper, and it just slid in, and they bolt it back down, and we measure, and we're within 100th of an inch of right. And that saves the company so much money. Spiritually, any misalignment, we're not talking about, a car being misaligned where it's pulling you off in the ditch. We're talking about these fine tuning, minimal things that look like they wouldn't make a difference at all. And God's fine tuning our hearts toward people, toward situations. And this is on both sides. It's not, it's removing us from a place of criticism, but it's also taking us to a place of not tolerating anymore things that we've tolerated before. Like, oh, well, that's just how Johnny is. Well, I don't care if that's just how Johnny is or not. That's Johnny's problem. I'm not going to tolerate it in my bubble. That's where we're coming. These fine tuning alignments, especially in churches, especially in homes, that I can't control what goes on in your home, and you can't control what goes on in my home, but I can control mine, and you can control yours. So my bubble, I'm responsible for fine tuning that bubble, and so we can't tolerate the things that we used to tolerate, and now you've got me worried about the bread that I buy.
Well, I mean, that's just that I don't think that's a corporate word, but I mean, who knows? Maybe it might be, but I definitely, I'll tell you, like for me, it's just I'm not even going down that all, because it's like I don't. What are those things in that? But anyway, I love that story so much about the alignment with that roller being so a hundredth of an inch. We would never be able to tell what that is,
Hmm.
and not even production would tell what that is, right? Just the bottom line would ultimately tell what that is. And I just think that's so profound, and I think that's so exactly what I'm talking about with this exact alignment. And it's to the point where it's like, what difference would that really make? What difference really would
Hmm.
cutting out bread make from the store? But I do believe that there's an energy shifting that we are unbeknownst is leaking out. And I remember that dream that I had about those pipes. I haven't thought about that in a long time, but
Hmm.
ultimately the point of the dream was in those small spaces. So when things are tight, we might not have but one choice. We might not have any choice. It seems like we have no choice. We just got to keep going along with the flow, right? Or we got two choices, and so that's it.
Hmm.
And in the dream was that when it got to this wide space, you had multitudes of choices. You could do any kind of thing.
Hmm.
That was really where, the and I tell my clients this all the time, because people will complain that when they start waking up to the fact that they're with a narcissist and they're going through this healing thing, so many people will fall away from them. And I said to them, the valley, if you think people are falling away in the valley, you wait until you get to the mountaintop, because that's actually where you're going to find out who's actually with you, because so many people will believe you don't deserve it, or you shouldn't have that, or
Hmm.
or the person who's getting blessed is like, okay, thanks, bye, to all the people who were with them through the valley.
Hmm.
So the mountaintop truly is where you see who is this person for real, because everything is enhanced. Now they have access to not to the connections, the opportunities, the resources, or whatever it is. Now they can actually show what's in their heart.
Exactly.
Now it is experience who this person truly is, not when they're in a tight space, because they might only have one choice. Truly, there might only be one thing that they could choose to do in that situation, but not when it's at the mountaintop. And that's why I think it's so important that all the words, they go together. It's a precept upon precept. It's the if you missed the word about connections, and you've been trying to hang on and doing any kind of thing that you can to keep that person in your life who is clearly not the right alignment for you, it's just compounding. It's you're paying for that it's coming with a cost, it's coming with an interest rate, that's going to take away from something else.
I like that as compounding.
Yeah.
Because when you said that, I can see like a small vibration down here
Mhm.
becoming a massive wave down
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It escalates, it builds. It's a snowball that continues, and that's which is why the small things cannot be tolerable.
Hmm.
Those small things, they may be small down here. It may be a hundredth of an inch or a thousandth of an inch down here, but it may be a foot down here. It's kind of like when you're shooting, and I know you're familiar with this, um, but when you're shooting a gun, you can down here at the gun side, if you move just an eighth of an inch,
Hmm.
100 yards down the target, you're off by 3 foot.
Hmm.
I mean, it is so huge down there, but down here, it is literally just a matter of one breath.
That's right.
And I mean, when you're shooting target shooting, you actually time your gun off with your breaths,
That's right.
and then you release that breath and you pause, and then you squeeze the trigger. So when a competition shooter, they're paying attention to their breath, they're paying attention to their heartbeat. They've got to time their breath and their heartbeat off just right, that when they release that, they are perfectly still. So then now they can squeeze the trigger. And just because that small fractional movement can cost them everything at the end of it, and that is that fine tuning to that, and God's dealing with you with bread. So maybe next week you can teach us how to make bread correctly.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. It's
but
gonna
but
be, the 2020 sourdough craze in 2024.
but that is a reality,
Mhm.
of even down to the way we eat, down
Oh,
to
absolutely.
our
Yeah.
sleep patterns,
Mhm.
our
Yep.
exercise habits, what we allow into our bodies. I mean,
Absolutely.
we just came through Christmas, and I will tell you, I poisoned myself at Christmas. I mean, every time we would sit down to eat, they got to bring out cake or pie. And then my oldest brother, his birthday was the 29th. And so they go get a cake. Well, I can't say no. And then I was bullied. Angel, I was absolutely bullied. We sat down to eat one night, and Mark and Sean have a piece of pie or cake or something, and they said, "You want some?" I says, "No, I did, but I was actually, just we just got through eating, so I'm kind of like letting dinner settle." And they hound me. And then Mark finally just grabs a plate and fixes it and passes it to me. I said, "I didn't say I want it." He said, "Yeah, you do." And so I was bullied. I was forced into poisoning. But now, there all this alignment to every aspect of our life, what we allow into our eyes, what we allow into our ears, what we allow into our heart. We have to be so cautious and so careful,
Mhm.
and yeah, I think that. I think that many people in this season are going to come to that open place of your dream. They're going to be at that place where they
Mhm.
had resources they did not have before.
Yep.
They have opportunities they did not have before, and
Yep.
it will literally be a test for them. It's going to be God testing. Where's your heart really at? Because over here you can say whatever you want. You can say I would invest in this or I would
Yep.
support this, but
Yep.
if you don't have the opportunity, it means nothing. You don't have
Right.
a stick in the fire. But over here, when you have the ability to do it, will you still do that?
Mhm.
Will you still support what you said you were going to support when it costs you something now? And I think that many people in this season are going to come into great blessing, but the blessing will be the testing of their heart.
Absolutely. There's a story that my pastor tells, and he had a different church in San Antonio like 2 decades ago, and he was at that church, and they had some kind of prophet come in, and he was like, who wants to be prayed for? And this lady stands up, and you know without going in the line or anything, she's like, I need to get prayed for. And he's like, well, okay, what do you need? And she says, I need to win the lottery. And she said, now my heart on this is because I need to give all the money to the church because the church really needs money. And he said, okay, I'm going to pray for you, but first give me all your money. First give me all of the money that you have, and I'm going to give it to the church. As his point is, if you're not willing to give what you have right now, you're not going to give all of the money that you win from the lottery. And that's
Exactly.
absolutely. So I completely agree with you. And I've seen this happen actually multiple times. It's one of these things where you try to warn people, but if they're not receptive, if they got it all figured out, they're not teachable, they're not coachable, there's no warning. It's just the experience will be the teacher, and experience is an unnecessary teacher, but we we often opt for that one, right? It's like there's nothing new under the sun, and yet I got to go experience this thing because I'm not quite sure that that person over here who already experienced it is telling me the truth. I got to go do it my own self, right? But yeah, I absolutely do agree with that. And and I also believe that there's going to be really people who are individuals who are totally in line, who have been partnering with the word of the Lord over the last few years and have been set up into this place, are going to start connecting with other people who are just as committed, who have submitted through the pruning processes as well, who are truly ready to start building something that is momentous.
Mhm.
I just see tons of new movements happening. In fact, like um big movements, and I mean that culturally and in the marketplace and so forth, but I just see a lot of momentum coming when these people are in correct alignment with themselves and then in correct alignment with their outside world as well. And by the way, your physical chemistry has a profound impact on the quality of experience of life that you have here.
Mhm.
And so, yes, your physical body is very, very important to your experience as a spirit being on this planet. Actually, I'm going to have a functional medicine doctor. He's spirit filled, functional medicine doctor, fourth generation, on my channel, talking about just this because he doesn't believe in disease. He says there's only consequences, and I actually believe that as well. I don't believe in aging because it's a slow death. Jesus came to get rid of death, hell, and the grave being the place that you even put a dead thing. I don't even need the space where I put a dead thing because I've defeated death so much.
Mhm.
And that really needs to be how our belief system truly needs to be producing fruit in that. So while I think that's a word for me, but might be a corporate word. I am going to still have people who are pursuing excellence in the kingdom of life in their physical body onto my channel and into my businesses. That I think it's really important that people start paying more and more and more attention into how their bodies work, because if you don't understand that, how are you going to understand why you're not
Mhm.
having impact with your family or with your business or whatever. Like you steward yourself first.
We were joking around the other day after dinner. I had grilled some steaks, and that's what my brother. We did that for his birthday. We grilled steaks and ate cake, so steak and cake, and
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Uh, I mean, steak is probably my favorite food if it's cooked right.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
I really don't care to go to like the restaurant and get it as much as I do to grill it at home because it's better. Well, these steaks turned out great. Matter of fact, um, whenever I'm grilling steak, whoever's out there with me, we all are going to have to taste test, just to make sure it's right. And so I had some, my brother had some, my son had some, and then my nephew grabbed a bite, and he puts it in his mouth, and he just stopped, and he went, I feel like I'm eating art. So
Oh, I love that. That's a great description.
yeah, I just looked at him. I said, "Boy, you are a mess." So according to Easton, I cook art. But
I
anyway,
love that.
we were sitting down, and Mark looked at me. He said, "What do they have to do to a steak if you have a cow in Australia that they butcher and process, and then they put that on a ship and ship it over to the States, and then by the time it goes through the grocery store," he said, "what do you have to do to a piece of meat to get it to last 6 months by the time it hits the shelf?" And that's really a reality of so much of what we eat. We have no idea all the stuff that's in it. And I say that not to be on a health kick, because it's the first of the year, but it's the reality. Yeah, yeah. My son texted me last night. He went to the gym and he's like, "Dad, it's
Yeah.
crazy up here." I said, "It's
Yep.
the first of the year.
Always is.
It
Yeah.
won't change until February." But
That's right.
it's kind of that reality of these things, these impurities that creep in. They're invisible. You can't see them. Matter of fact, most of your fruit and vegetables at the grocery store that's so shiny and so pretty, it's
Yep.
because it's waxed.
Yeah.
They literally put a wax coating on it to make it shiny.
Mhm.
It's not because the fruit is just that beautiful. You want beautiful fruit? Go to the farmer's market. Um,
Yes. And that wax coating is actually pesticide.
yes. And so we're just ingesting all of this kind of stuff, but spiritually we need to be aware of the same thing.
That's
Um,
exactly what I was going to say. Yes.
the parallels. I mean,
Yeah.
everything is paralleled,
Mhm.
and I think that so many times, this is one thing. I will listen to ministers, and I have my favorites, and I don't look at people for perfection, right? Because nobody's perfect. And they're always gonna say something that maybe I don't perfectly agree with,
Mhm.
interpretation on one verse or whatever. What I'm looking for is the feeling in my heart. Does it bear witness
Mhm.
with my spirit? Does
Mhm.
this person bear witness with my spirit? And oftentimes I can find that I'll follow a minister, and then all of a sudden I can't listen to them anymore. Not because they said anything wrong. They're still preaching the same message or on the same lines that they've been preaching for 15, 20 years. But something just rakes over me. And it's almost like fingernails on a chalkboard when I try to listen to them, and I'll try over and over. And I'm like, well, maybe it's because they were at that church and they just weren't comfortable or something. And I listen to them again. I'm like, no. And it doesn't matter if they're sharing a prophetic dream or teaching what they consider it to be a deep nugget from the word. It's just like it don't set right. It's not because the word doesn't set right. It's because the person, the delivery, there's something misaligned there, and so I have to choose. Am I going to continue to try to listen? Because there's a preservative, an additive somewhere in there that does not need to be
Mm.
absorbed by me. And I
Mhm.
think that we need to be so spiritually discerning in this season to
Mhm.
understand who we're receiving from. And I've also had just the opposite. I've had people that I didn't really care for. And that already made up my
Yep.
mind. When you go to listen to them, or if you're going somewhere to hear them speak, and it's like I'm coming out of obligation. I really don't want to be here. You've already made up your mind. You don't like them, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden your heart connects, and it's like, wow, they're not what I thought,
Yeah.
and you can feel that alignment.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just had that happen to me not too long ago where I already knew this person was not my assignment and I need to get out of here. And then they just start saying this thing. And I'm like, the spirit is on what they are saying. I was like,
Exactly.
wow, the Lord, he can speak through anybody. Really, I mean, truly. And so I think you're exactly right. Like being able to, um, get the bone from the marrow, because it's every single instant. And I absolutely agree. I think that what you just said about their spiritual preservatives getting mixed in with the thing that you think is a pure thing and it isn't. I think that's so good. That's exactly what I was feeling on that too, where it's like the more. And I have noticed too, which a lot of people who fast for spiritual reasons have said as well, like they'll, feel more in tune with the spirit, and they'll hear clearer and all of that type of stuff. But you know that in the natural, in your physical body, there's a lot of benefits happening with that too.
Hmm.
You're actually able, your eyesight gets better, your hearing can get better. I'm talking about your physical capability. They have had people be able to shift their total eyesight so that they don't need glasses anymore through
Wow.
eye exercises and fasting. Yes, your body regenerates at such a quick rate without imperfections, because what happens is your DNA deteriorates over time. It keeps multiplying and multiplying and
Hmm.
multiplying, and eventually it doesn't keep the same exact code that it had, right? And that elongating of the telomere is actually why, or I'm sorry, the shortening of the telomere is why you have gray hair and things like that. It's losing its compactness to be able to produce the same exact copy, the same exact replica. And
Wow.
fasting undoes that. Yeah. So
That
there
that's
actually,
that's
I
really
say that to
interesting.
say there really is there is a link between your physical health and your spiritual health. And God, because God is infused in every single thing. He's infused in, he created this. This is where he wants to live. He wants to live in your body. I think I've shared this with you before, but this is during 2020, and I was sitting down to watch something on the TV, which I like never do, but I had gotten chips and salsa, and the salsa was from the store, but it was kind of that kind that you get at the deli. So it was
Mm.
fresh or whatever. And I sit down to eat it, and God said, I don't want that. Like, I don't want you to eat that. And I was like, but it's just chips and salsa and I want it. And he was like, well, only one of us can live here. And so, I mean, I just think about that so much, where it's like he wants to be invited into every single
Mhm.
decision. He wants to help you live a perfect life, free from the traps of death that
Mhm.
this world has, set up for you on purpose to keep you there, to keep you sick, to keep you not hearing from him, to keep you full of bondage and lack of boldness to go after your dreams, to think you thinking small and thinking badly about yourself and about other people, to make you feel like you're rejected all the time. All of that these are traps leading you into
Mhm.
death.
Now, if you tell me that fasting will make you taller, I may not eat for 6 months.
Yeah, yeah. You and me both.
So that is God has this divine plan, and I'll tell you, the last couple of years have been so difficult that
Yeah.
I think that we go into a spiritual survival mode,
Yeah.
and we're not thinking about alignment for advancement. We're thinking about hunkering down for survival, and there really is that shifting right now to where people are coming out of that cocoon. They're coming out of that out of that trench, and beginning to see more of a focus toward the future and toward building, and that realignment to the season. Matter of fact, the word for alignment that Mark and I both were getting were started back in probably August or so. I ministered it on Romans 12 chapter 12 verse 2. Be not conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I really felt like God gave me a good message, and He did. And so I preached it, and the next week it was like more revelation on that one verse. And then Mark ministered, and then it was more revelation on that verse. And so we literally, I don't remember how many messages each of us preached, but over the course of almost 2 months, it was all on Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Yes, we used other verses, but it was focused right there. And at the culmination of it, the last message that was preached on it was by Marcus, and he was got down to the root of the word conformed, and it means to be animated by a life force. And that was so profound to me because I could see it. So God breathes into Adam the life force of heaven, and that is meant to go through humanity. And then Paul tells us, do not breathe in the life force of this current age. Do not breathe in the life force, the animating force of this world. And we have so many areas of our lives that are polluted in the air, in the spiritual air, from the pollutions of this age, of what we're programmed to, of what we literally, the propaganda pushes upon people. And so the Lord is calling us to not to be conformed, not to breathe in this age, but be transformed, be made completely new by, and that word transform means to be changed by proximity. And I really, really love that definition, because true transformation, true change comes by our proximity to God. When we are pursuing that intimate place with Him, not because times are good and not because times are bad, but when we are just sincerely pursuing intimacy with the Lord, then we are being transformed by that proximity. That's where discernment comes from. That's where prophetic words are released. Matter of fact, I know you've had people ask you for a prophetic word, and there's been times that you've been like, you can go to God just like I can. And there are people that not in that place. I get it, but truly, so many people have outsourced a prophetic word, outsourced their study. A preacher can preach something that's completely not scriptural, and they wouldn't know it because they haven't got into scripture. I see people all the time argue about preachers who are teaching scripturally, but they haven't spent the time studying what the preacher's preaching about. So they know it's a verse, but they have no clue what it means. And so they'll argue about this preacher, how he's just tearing up the word of God. Well, they haven't been in it to find out the preacher's actually right. So again, this comes down to proximity, just being in the presence of God, not for agenda, not for some motive. If somebody wants to spend time with you because they can gain something from you, they're not spending time with you. They're just manipulating, period. So when somebody, and this is, if somebody doesn't know who you are and they still like you, it's sincere. I've had people come to the church before. I had a guy one time, I got a phone call that this guy was coming to the church, and I was asked just to, introduce myself to him. And so the guy came into the doors of the church, and I happened to be standing close to the entrance when he did. And so I reached out to shake his hand, and I said, "Hi, how are you?" I recognized him because I pulled up his profile picture. He had not pulled up mine. So as he's walking by, he just kind of looks at me. He did not speak. Or if he did, he mumbled something. He did not stop to shake my hand, and he just cruised on past me. I'm like, all right. So I just turn around and go about my business. And then he asked somebody for the pastor, and they pointed toward me. And then he comes over, "Oh, hey, brother, I'm so-and-so." And I was like, I don't care. I was polite. I shook his hand, so forth. But his motive was completely off. He had an agenda. And I think that God in this hour is really exposing people's agendas. He's exposing their motives. And we need to be so sensitive to discernment, not paranoid of people, not not looking to find fault in anyone, but just aware. And then we'll be able to see that God will highlight people to us, highlight connections in this season. And we will there's something that will click in that moment, and it may not look advantageous at all because it's not about it looking advantageous. It's about God connecting in the spirit those that he's aligned. And when they're in the same heart and the same spirit, this is why you can put a drug addict in the middle of the desert and he will find the one camel dealing meth, because there is a spiritual networking in that system. And the spirits are drawn to each other. And so we should be drawn to those who are in like heart and like spirit. But we have to be in that place of being transformed by proximity. And this is the alignment, is allowing God to transform us, allowing him to renew us, letting go of the past, letting go of self-guilt, all of these things, letting go of what people say about us or don't say about us, whether they like us, don't like us, and just focusing on this one thing, being alone and intimate with God and allowing him to transform us, and not being conformed, not getting the animating life force of this world around us.
hmm Absolutely. And I think it's so important that that last part about what you were saying, that we're transformed from the inside out,
Mhm.
because we can ultimately go through the right looking motions. And that is one of the things that I felt about that acceleration word that I had, is like people who have been just doing the right motions but who didn't actually have that heart transformation
Mhm.
are going to be, that's like the catalyst for why did that person get, so and so or such and
Yes.
such, because that was, where that person's heart had been being cultivated in that secret place day in and day out. That person just was looking at the outside of
Mhm.
like, what am I doing? And actually this week I'm in this like 31 days of wisdom challenge on in I'll tell you what, if Facebook advertises me something, I'm probably like 80% of the time buying it, because they're so good at knowing what I'm going to buy. How do they do that? Anyway, I I ended up joining this group, and it's going through the proverbs, and for each one proverb for each of the days. And so anyway, yesterday's message was on fig leaves, was on the concept of the fig leaves, like how Adam and
Mhm.
Eve, first made their clothes. The first clothes were made out of the fig leaves. And the speaker was saying how fig leaves have like a shelf life basically of 7 days. I thought, isn't that profound?
Mm.
Because how often is it the person who's bound by religion, and the word religion actually means to bind. So how many people are bound by religion, think showing up on Sunday every week, right? I got my new
Mhm.
fig leaves, I got my new fig leaves, I got my new fig leaves every Sunday, are thinking like I'm doing the right thing because I'm in church,
Mhm.
when they're not having their actual inside transformed. They're just trying to do the outside thing. I need a new set of fig leaves to
Just a
make it through
cover
this
up.
next week. Yes, exactly. And so I was thinking about that, and um it just is so interesting how the spiritual principles, if you follow them, have such transformation in every single area of your life, because it's the same thing in
Mhm.
business. You don't get successful because you did one thing right once. It's that habitual character of showing up every day for your business. It's the same thing for a marriage, it's the same thing as a parent, it's the same thing no matter what you're experiencing. It's the same thing where it's like you become a better person in that role because you're a better person,
Mhm.
And anyway, I just was thinking about that and how interesting it is, uh that fig leaves have a shelf life of 7 days, and we go to church every Sunday, once a week.
That makes complete sense. Of
Mm.
just, yeah, give me a fresh cover, a fresh dose of religion. So,
Mhm.
I look the look and look the part for another 7 days until next week, and I can come get my new cover then. Because by the end of the week, it's rotten, and by the end of the week, it's then turned brown and begin to crack, and it's not fulfilling its usage. And this is one of the reasons why the gym is full on January 1st through the 31st. And then February, the first 2 weeks of February, it begins to phase out because people go to the gym. I remember a few years ago, it was the first week of the year. I'd gone to the gym. We have these cubbies in our gym, little small lockers that are no doors on them. And I saw this one locker, and it had 3 blender bottles. Um, I want to say it was 4 different canisters of different mixes and a couple of other things. And I was like, wow, I've got to see whose locker this is, because this guy, he's got to be running from wall to wall because he's taken everything that GNC has to offer. And then I come out on the floor, And sure enough, here he comes. He's sweating profusely all over. No shoes. He's kicked his shoes off. He's got serious about his workout. He goes over to one machine and he is like just ramming through it as fast as he can go. He drops that and runs to the next one, does that, runs to the next one. And I mean, I lost 5 pounds watching him, just how quick he was moving everywhere. I saw him 3 days that first week, 1 day the next week, and that's been about 4 years ago. I have not seen him since. And because people are looking for that quick fix, they're looking, I'm going to run down to the nutrition store and I'm going to buy this supplement and it's going to fix all my problems. No. I'm going to get on this diet pill and it's going to fix all my problems. I'm going to take a shot of Ozempic and it's going to fix all my problems. And the quick fix is not the answer. It's line upon line, precept upon precept, a little here and a little there. And spiritually, people run and do the same thing. They'll go buy so-and-so's book or go to so-and-so's conference because that's all I need. If I just get to their conference, I can, I'll get what I need. No, if you're not spending time with God yourself, then you really don't even need to be listening to someone else as far as like for in-depth stuff, because you won't know if they're right or not. You haven't cultivated this place with the Lord that you can even discern.
Yeah, that's so good.
And I think that's, again, just all comes down to alignment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also like with the perfect alignment is the acceleration. It's like earlier when you were talking about, target practice with shooting. Everything has to be in perfect alignment in order for there to be acceleration towards the goal that you're actually trying to get at. Otherwise, there's acceleration towards a goal you don't want it to hit.
Yeah.
You'll miss your target completely. And so I think that's so important to recognize, like, how profound all of these levels of life that we have. It all starts with, like in shooting, with the breath, like in our spiritual existence. It all starts with the breath, like the presence, the very essence of God being within us and cultivated in us. So I think that it's so profound when we think about it that way, where it's like you could be off in one thing, one little thing, and it changes the whole trajectory of hitting your goal or not.
And really our goal should be, especially as a minister, my goal should never be to preach a good message. As odd as that sounds, my goal should never be to impress anyone with a prophetic word or with how deep I know the word. My priority should always be over here of maintaining this place with the Lord. A great message, that's a byproduct. A great sermon, that's a byproduct. A prophetic word, that's a byproduct. If we ever leave the focus of proximity, then we've missed it. And I think that over the last couple of years, we've seen so much exposing and uncovering. There's been that shaking that has uncovered so much. And of course, you and I both have had prophetic words about God revealing and exposing what's been done in secret and what's been done in darkness. But what's been done in secret, it goes both ways. God's exposing what's been done in secret well, and he's exposing what's been done in secret not so well. So we have really, and I don't know how far you want to go back as far as looking at a timeline through the modern church to see this. It's been this building into where we are right now. But I would say the last 3 years, I think that 2020 was this shaking and shifting. Not just a shaking and sifting, but a shaking and shifting, where the focus and the heart, many people their hearts were exposed and revealed. Are you going to trust the government? Are you going to trust God? Are you going to be convinced that not building up your immune system and wearing a mask is the key to your survival? And I don't want to go down that road, but it was a shifting, and then there began to be a building process. And now that we are in 2024, there is something so profound. And I know a lot of times when we hear something, we can get caught up in the words. I don't do as well at conveying the emotion as I wish I could, because the emotion inside of me is almost explosive. There's like something on the inside just building up almost like a volcano that you can feel. And I can't really express that in words. But as we come through that turning of the year, or as we've come through that turning of the year, there is something right here, and it is almost a launching in that acceleration. And there's such a supernatural push that God is breathing on the back of this, and pushing us forward. And there will be some things that will happen so fast, our heads will spin, and we're going to look and like, how did this happen so quickly? And I think there'll be so many people that will look up and say, how in the world did God do this so fast? I've prayed for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years for this miracle, and I have not seen any movement. Matter of fact, I've only seen it go the wrong way throughout the years. And then all of a sudden, God has literally turned this around with a 180-degree turn, and then a launch forward in just a matter of days, weeks, or months. I think that there are going to be a lot of people that look at the end of this year, and they're going to see truly that acceleration. Especially my heart right now has been stirred for quite some time, but I really feel that this is a season of family restoration. I think the enemy has come in to just absolutely tear away at families. Sons and daughters breaking contact with mothers and fathers. I think that there have been siblings that have been separated in this hour, and there have been those that were in wrong relationships. They were in relationship. They still had contact, but it was by the wrong standards. And God is taking right now, in this season, I believe he is working on the hearts of fathers, mothers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, so forth. And he is releasing a grace for family restoration. I believe that there are many that have become hopeless in this past season, or at least times of hopelessness, and their faith has been stirred. They've looked at situations, they've looked at elements, and it seemed to have gotten worse and worse, and they got so discouraged. But then they could see one little thing, or they would get one prophetic word, or they would hear one message. Something would happen, especially toward the last quarter of the year, and their faith has been stirred. They've been dared to believe again, dared to hope again, and I believe that those are now being pushed into a place of correct pressing in. And I believe that God is releasing a grace over families, a grace of restoration over not just those relationships, but marriages. I can see in my heart so many spouses. There are wives that have been addicted to prescription drugs, and they have gone into depression, and there are husbands that have been fighting for the deliverance and the restoration of their wives. And I believe that we are going to see and hear stories of literally a dramatic, just complete 180-degree changes. I believe that there are husbands that have been alcoholics and verbally abusive at the very least, but many possibly even physically abusive. And I see husbands being set free of a demon of alcohol, and marriages being restored, the delusions in families being lifted, and correct communication being released. So for those that are fighting discouragement over families, please, I feel in my heart so sincerely that this is a season of restoration in families.
I like what you're talking about. I actually also had a word about heart sicknesses, that the heart sickness was going to be healed for not just an individual, but for generations. Like the child leaving, like you're discussing,
Mm.
that doesn't just affect the mom or the dad or the siblings. That affects the grandparents and the cousins and the aunties and the uncles and so forth. And so I actually see when you're talking about the like launching, is what I also see is like the when a rocket leaves this atmosphere, if you believe there's an atmosphere, um, and then the things on the earth never bother that rocket again. You
Hmm.
know, it just everything down here just stays down here, and the rocket, it just ascends to this higher place. And I really feel like that's happening for a lot of people in this season. It's literally going to be like that thing is never coming back into to settling into heart sickness ever again. And then sorry, I just lost my train of thought. There was one other thing that I was going to say about alignment, but I can't remember now. But yeah, I like heart sickness is being healed, and I really feel that where
Hmm.
it will not come back again because it doesn't have any place to land.
Yeah, and I think that the enemy has just beat so many people up over the last couple of years. You and I both dealing with people have seen, in
Oh yeah.
our own respective rights, we've seen families destroyed. We've seen, I've literally seen grown men cry, and just complete heartbreak, and you know, looking at it, and I've been there. In some respect, and man, it just tears you up to see where the enemy has wreaked havoc. But now we are coming into this place, this time in this season, that the warfare is shifting. We're not positioned in a place of defense where we're defending from the enemy coming into our territory, but we are positioned in a place of victory where we're going into the enemy's territory. And I think that's the one of the major shifts I have felt for 2024. And this has not been, it's not like we've been fighting this one way this whole time, and then all of a sudden God says, you know what, this is not working. No, he's been building this, he's been planning this, and it's been this shifting into this
Mhm.
position. And more than that, it's been a shifting of our understanding, I think, more than anything. It's this is just what he's been doing, but now he's allowing us to see, and we are literally going behind the enemy lines, and we're taking back the territory that was rightfully ours that the enemy has been occupying. So in terms of Joshua, we're crossing the flooded Jordan and we're headed to our Jericho, and God has given us the strategy and the blueprint for taking down the walls of Jericho. It wasn't Joshua that did it. It was God that did it. And man, in my mind's eye, when I see the story or read the story of Jericho, I can see. I'm a visual thinker, so I can see like Michael, the archangel, just waiting, and he's walking around, and there's these troops of angels around Jericho, and they're armed with mighty sledgehammers, and he's saying, "Okay, guys, just wait, just wait." We're not released until the seventh day. And on the seventh time, when they blow the trumpet, that's our sound. And he's just, you're walking around these angels. And then on the seventh day, the seventh time they march around, they blow the shofars. I believe Michael just screams, now. And all these angels just take their sledgehammers and boom, and the walls just shatter to Jericho, never to be rebuilt. It's not in our might. It's not in our power. It's not in our strategy. It's not in our understanding. It's by his spirit. So you can come up with the best plan in your own intellect. And I think this is one thing that makes you so valuable and so good at what you do, is because yes, you have experience, yes, you have education, yes, you have training, but beyond that, you have the leading of the Holy Spirit. So God comes alongside your education, he comes alongside your own personal experiences, battles won, battles lost, and he comes alongside Angel and releases his direction, because every client that you deal with on a unique individual basis, and you pray for your clients. You prophesy to your clients, and even while they go to court, you have people praying for them while they're in court, and so you're beyond what we would consider to be just a life coach for narcissistic abuse recovery. There's a spiritual, a godly element that you can't find everywhere. And that's that empowering, because God releases to you a blueprint for each individual case, each individual life. And I know some things are formed. Some things, there are mechanisms that you have to go through. So these steps are going to be the same, whether you're Sally or Susie. But then God gives you this individual, case by case blueprint. And I almost don't want to use the word blueprint, because that is actually a word that God gave to Mark for this season, is blueprints, because I kept using the word strategy, but the word blueprint is so much more understanding of what God's doing, because it's not just a strategy to win a war. It's a blueprint to build. It's a blueprint to establish. And so God gives you that for people on how to build their lives, how to establish their lives. And I believe that God is releasing to leaders blueprints for those under their leadership and their organizations, their ministries. But I also believe that God is releasing blueprints to individuals on how to restructure their life, how to renovate their lives, tear down this section and get a blueprint on how to rebuild it correctly. And I can see that very clearly.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And actually, when I was listening to your message on Sunday, I was like, that's wild, because God gave me the word blueprint a few months ago. I created a course called the Prosperity Blueprint, and it's literally using scripture, using spiritual principles to create prosperity in any area of your life. Yes, for your business or for your wealth, but also for your health, for your mental health, for your emotional health, for your physical body, so forth. So, yeah, so that was another thing. I was like, oh my goodness, that's so cool, because we both have the same word, because he had blueprint and you had alignment. And I had a client say to me a couple weeks ago, he said, it's like you just know things. How do you just know things?
I had a young man Sunday. This kid is, oh my gosh, he's just precious. There's a gentleman in our church, and he actually lives up in Kentucky, and so he only comes in when he can. And he brought his son in. They're in for the holidays, and his son, I'm telling you, this young man is just, his name's Dylan, and he is just, he has the Spirit of the Lord on him. And I mean, as soon as he comes in, he hadn't been here in 6 months. As soon as he comes in, he's looking for us, and he's targeted too. I mean, he'll beam for you, and when he sees you, he just takes off running and grabs you. And he's always, I love you. And so anyway, after service, he wanted me to pray for him. And so I'm praying for him, and I didn't ask him what to pray for. I didn't, honestly, in the moment, I wasn't consciously thinking of this, that he's got something specific he wants prayed for. So anyway, we pray for him. It was myself and Mark, and then afterwards he looks up at his dad and he says, "How did he do that?" And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I didn't even tell him what I wanted prayer for, but that's exactly what he prayed for." He said, "How does he do that?" And his dad's like, "Well, son, that's the way it's supposed to be."
Yeah, and actually that actually triggered me to remember what I was going to say just a second ago when I forgot. Again, everything in the spiritual does have a natural correspondence. It's just, is it the right way and the correct way and the way that God had set it up, or is it the counterfeit version? And so one of the things that we talk about with alignment is, do y'all believe the same thing? Do y'all agree on the same principles? Do y'all, and all that type of stuff, which is super important. And having somebody who's mixing their faith in the spirit world with yours is super important. But that actually corresponds to the natural world as well. They've done studies where they took a group of children who were first graders, and I'm sorry, they're third graders, because they were like 10. And they gave them to a teacher, and said, these kids are special needs kids, but the special needs teacher is sick this year. She's out this year. We don't have the budget to get a new one. Can you just take them? Just do whatever you can do. There's no real requirement. And
Mm.
those kids saw a 65% dip in their learning capabilities, in their reading comprehension, and so forth. The next year, they did the same thing, same group of children, gave them to a different teacher and said, these children are extremely gifted, but the gifted teacher is out this year. So we expect them to be far and above a normal fourth grader. So don't treat them like normal fourth graders. Treat them, like they're sixth grade or seventh grade, and because they're extremely
Mm.
gifted. Well, those kids saw a huge trajectory forward, where they were literally matching sixth, seventh, and eighth graders in their grades and reading comprehension and so forth. The point here is that the natural, what somebody sees in the natural for your potential, is also important. It's
Yeah.
also important that you're aligned with somebody who can say, like, these are your talents, these are your strengths, this is how you pull out that greatness that you already have in the natural. Yes, in the spirit, of course, as well, but there is a natural principle to this, which is, again, alignment is so important, because
Hmm.
what I had seen too often is like a rubber band, where it's like being pulled and it's being pulled and then being pulled and then being pulled. So it's like
Hmm.
there's no clear momentum. There's no clear movement forward, especially. And this can happen with, okay, you're going to step out, you're going to do something new, but then you get around your blood family who doesn't believe that you could do that, or doesn't
Hmm.
believe that, who speaks death over those dreams that you're going after, or who tries to remind you of your natural lineage that you came from, who tries to remind you of the natural things that you're capable of, who doesn't have that vision for you, right? And so you get around that environment, and then you try it again, and then you go back into, like, your entrepreneur group, or your small group at church, who, you're going after the things of the Lord, and you're trying to really transform into this person that God had created you to be originally. And then you get back into, your high school friend group, or whatever, it is for you, and your specific thing. And this was a couple of years ago. It was that year, was it 2022 or 2023, whenever I had that dream about the connections, is really when I started to see this. Like, somebody would take a step forward, and it was like they were
Hmm.
yanked 5 steps back, and then they would try again. And it was just this constant, like, tug of war, back and forth and back and forth. There was never like, it's one step and then one step, and like this constant movement forward, even if it was small steps. And I again, I just really hammer home the importance of alignment in
Hmm.
every single aspect this year, because those things that you think the natural world doesn't really impact, or doesn't really bother you, you do come to earth with a program.
Hmm.
Your non-conscious mind is listening to every single thing that's going on around you, the things that you don't even notice, the air temperature and the movement coming off of the fan, or if you have air conditioning or whatever is going on, your non-conscious mind is picking up all of that. It's keeping your heart beating, it's moving blood through your body, and it's also paying attention to those very small changes inside of your physical body when you hear something that you like, or you hear something that you don't like, or you have anxiety, or you feel like you're getting depressed, or you're whatever. Your non-conscious mind is keeping track of all of that stuff. So it's very important that you're aware the environments that you put your physical body in, you open your gates up to. These
Hmm.
are impacting the trajectory and the speed of which you move on that trajectory in the natural.
I would be real interested to see what could have happened with the special needs children had they told a teacher, or a teacher had the vision that they're not lacking, they're have the potential to do something great that never one no, that no one ever saw. And if they approached it from that perspective, how much would that have changed the outcome of those children? I know that watching people get around their families, everybody has a position in a family, right? So, maybe you were the black sheep of the family for years, and then you get it back around your family. They still treat you like the black sheep. Maybe you are marked by some bad decisions or whatever. So you're successful away from them, but then you get around them, and literally their expectation of you, it's almost like how they see me is how I see me. And that's what happened in Numbers 13 when the spies go out and they spy out the land. They see the giants, and they said, we're grasshoppers in their sight. So they saw themselves as grasshoppers because they thought that the giants looked at them like grasshoppers. And then you have Joshua and Caleb like, send us up now. Let's go right now. We can take this. And that identity, understanding of who we are should not come from someone else. And this is where we have to break free of other people's explanations, other people's expectations, other people's words. Who cares what somebody thinks about you, I am who I am, whether you like it or not. You are who you are, whether anybody likes it or not. And this is one thing I admire about your strength, because you do business in many ways that are male-dominated arenas. And you don't go in with a chip on your shoulder like I'm a woman, so I'm going to prove to them that I can do it. Nor do you go in there into those arenas defensively. You just go in as Angel. You're a PhD doctor, but you don't care if somebody calls you Dr. Storm or whether they call you Angel, because you're a doctor one way or the other, whether they recognize your experience and your education or they don't. It shows more about them than it does about you. And that's kind of the reality of how we need to approach things is I am who I am. And I don't need your validation to prove who I am. I think I told you this recently. If I got up every Sunday and had to prove why I'm a pastor and why I'm a good pastor, I'm going to spend all my time defending a position in order to keep that position. And that's nonsense. I'm the pastor, whether you like me or not. I don't have to get up and defend that. So now I can operate from that authority, because I'm not just trying to play that role. This is kind of funny. Someone wants to be funny and make fun of us.
Paul, welcome to our podcast. I'm actually glad that you've tuned in, because you're helping boost the ratings and boost the amount of people that are seeing this podcast. And I just welcome you. My parents were not hippie, but they were prophetic. And so that's where I got my name. My middle name is Joy, by the way, as well. Justin, I completely agree with what you're saying, where it's like when we can operate from a place of identity instead of from identity, and for love instead, or from love instead of for love, from acceptance instead of for acceptance, that's when we can really start to call out the beauty in other people, right? The gifts in other people. And I guess I should have clarified with that story that I was telling you about before. Those were all normal third graders. There was nothing wrong with them. They were just all average third graders. But it was it was the projection of the teacher onto the children that had these profound impacts on whether the students succeeded or failed according to normal third grade standards. And so that's my ultimate point, is that yes, it's important in the spirit realm who you're connected to and so forth, but it's also really important that the person in the natural can call out those things and can see you the way that you were designed, that you were divinely designed and created from, because that does have a huge impact on your success in the natural realm.
And this is something interesting. I used to watch my dad would prophesy over someone, and I would know. This is when I was an adult. I would know this person and their life and so forth, and I would hear him call things out, and I would be thinking, man, Daddy, you missed it, because he's calling things out that I could not see. What I did not understand was that he was calling for things as though they are, even though they were not, because God was showing him this is the potential that I've placed there. If they'll align to me, this is where I'm going to take them. And I've seen literally people come out of so much a lack and so much hardship and come into the very place that he called forth because he could see in the spirit. And this is where we need to be very careful. And not only what we speak over others to them, but also what we say. That's the leadership in that example. They told the teacher, this is what to expect. And sometimes we tell people what to expect, and it's completely wrong. And so it gives them the approach to come in at that angle. And so we need to be cautious and careful on even what we speak about people. And this is something the Lord really gave you recently as well, was to guard your words so carefully. And I think this goes in multiple directions, but we have to be so aware of what we're speaking over ourselves, our families, our situations, and what we're speaking on others.
Yeah, and with that, it was really like the in-depth way of the English language and how it's constructed, because I was saying to you, like, if I say to you war, do you think about war as in like fighting in a battle, or do you think of like I wore these clothes? And so that's really
Mm-hmm.
where I was coming from on that, where it's just interesting how many similarities words have, and being very intentional with even that, with the way that we're engaging with other people, and our communication with others and those around us. But yeah, I am so excited about 2024. I'm really excited about the things God is doing right now, and the perfecting of those alignments within individuals, the perfecting of alignments within groups of people, churches especially. I feel that very strongly with your church as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the acceleration that's coming. It's going to be a really great season to see fulfillment of long awaited promises.
Yeah, and let me give you something else here, because I knew that coming into the year, I didn't want to share anything with you, and I
Mhm.
didn't want you to share anything with me, because I knew that it was going to be so aligned to each other,
Mm.
and I didn't want Mark sharing anything with me,
Mhm.
because I knew that what he had, it was going to be aligned to it, but I would rather that alignment come in the moment. Because it's not planned, it's not orchestrated in any way. But
Mhm.
let me give you, like, you had the alignment and acceleration. What I had was hear it, see it, and enter into it or walk into it.
Mhm.
And this is a process, really. But in 1 Samuel 17:29, David cries out, "Is there not a cause? Is there not a dobar?" And that dobar, that word means word, and it's a prophetic word. It's a spoken word. And so the last, I don't know, probably month or 6 weeks, in the messages, that's what's been stirring in me, and I could hear it. Is there not a cause? That's why the enemy attacks. That's why the enemy comes, because there's a cause. There's a marking. Matter of fact, when David was anointed in 1 Samuel 13, I believe it was, that word anointed means to be painted. So when the anointing comes upon us, we are painted. We are targeted in that moment. And so David cries out, is there not a prophecy? Is there not a promise? And so I think that many people in this hour, they need to go back to what the Lord has given them. They need to go back to what the Lord has spoken to them in those deep moments, and hold to that word. Grasp onto it. Don't let go of it. You hear it, and then the Lord takes us to a place of being able to see pieces of it. He takes us to a place of being able to see it but not quite touch it. And that's what was so amazing to me coming in at the end of the year. I pulled up one day, and you could see out here the building pad, and then you could see the new road. And I was just when I pulled up, I was so amazed. I was like, "God, you're so good." I didn't see this coming. I knew we were going to build a building, but I didn't see the new road coming in just a few months ago. And so I'm looking at this in such a remarkable way. And it was like we could reach out and now we can touch it. I can walk on the road now, but it's not completed. I can walk on the building pad, but it's not completed. So this has been that time of I heard it. Matter of fact, when we had the plan to build the building, I was working on something for someone else. Actually, I was trying to do something to help someone, and I was in my shop and I was working away, and I was praying off and on, but really I was more focused on what I was doing, and I heard the Lord speak, build a building, and so I'm like, build a building. We're not in the position to build a building right now. I mean, that was my first thought. And so I just kept on chewing it up and chewing it up and chewing it up. But the reality was God was releasing that work. It wasn't that we didn't have plans to build a building. We've been planning on that for a long time. But he was literally saying, okay, it's time. Get ready. Build the building. And so we step out to do that. Well, now through 2023, we come to the close of it, and I can see the start of it. And I can see the start of the road, and it's all beginning to take shape. Now I can actually physically see. I don't mean just spiritually see. I mean physically see something, but we can't quite lay hold of it. We're not driving on the asphalt yet. I did get to drive on the dirt the other day. I came out and talked to the guy that's doing the road, and going over some of the details, and he's like, well, when you leave out, you can go down the road. I said, really? Because, we've been trying to stay off of it with the weather and everything. So I was cruising through on the maiden voyage down our road. And it's just so surreal because it's happening so fast. And so next we come into the place of entering into it. We hear it, and then we begin to see it. And then we come to the place that God accelerates us. He catapults us into it. And that's where we are right now, is we've heard it, we've seen it, and now we're entering into it. And I think that's, I think that is one of the major parts that will mark this season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The things that have been invisible, have just been in our hearts, are actually going to be in our hands now.
Exactly. And we're laying hold of it. And, it's just exciting.
It is. It's so exciting.
I don't know if I said it 150 times, but I know I've said it at least 50. It's just very exciting. And now you're having the doctor on your channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know when, or is that just still?
We don't. Yeah, we're doing the interview in February. I'm not sure if it'll be if it'll be live on we're not going to do it live. We're going to record it. So I'm not sure if that video is going to be released in February or in March. But yes, okay. I will definitely be letting everybody know ahead of time, because I'm actually going to allow people to ask questions so that he can answer if people have, specific questions they would like answered. So yeah, I have a little bit more of a structured format for that interview.
In that case, I'll have to start saving up my questions now.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if that was going to be in the next couple of weeks. So I wanted to make sure to get that out. But
yeah, that'll be after the wedding, for sure.
Pray. just pray. That's all I can say. My daughter is getting married next week, and so it's that stressful time. I actually went to the firework stand yesterday or day before. No, it was day before. I came out to the church for something, and I'm on my way back, and Shauna texted me. She's like, hey, can you go by the firework stand? I'm like, okay, are we doing fireworks tonight? She says, no, go get me some sparklers.
Oh, that'll be fun.
I said, sparklers? She said, yeah, for the wedding. So I come into the fireworks store, and the young lady looks at me. She says, what are you looking for? And I said, sparklers. Oh, they're all right over here. So I grabbed a bundle, and I grabbed another bundle. I ended up grabbing like a basket, just started piling them in. And so they thought that I was making a sparkler bomb. I don't even know what a sparkler bomb is. And the guy's like, these are the wrong ones for a sparkler bomb. And I said, okay, I'm not doing a sparkler bomb. I'm doing a wedding. And they all stop, and they're like, a wedding? Oh, that's brilliant. I'm like, well, it wasn't
Yeah.
my idea. It was my wife's. And so anyway, I think they started a new sales tactic on telling everyone that comes in, if you're having a wedding, you need to stock up on sparklers. So yeah, the event will be next week if we can. We're almost there. So
Absolutely. No, it'll be so fun. I'm really excited.
I am too. I really the my future son-in-law is a great guy. Really love him, and so I'm excited for them. It's just getting everything ready and all of that. That's the only stressful part. So
Well, it'll be worth it.
it will. It will. Um, I don't really have anything else other than again, I am just incredibly excited. So, do you have anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think that'll be it for today's episode.
Well, as always, it's a blessing to be able to do this podcast with you. And
Same.
would you mind closing us in prayer?
I would love to. God, we just thank you so much for today, for this new year. We thank you for 2024. We thank you for the things that you have in store for this year. We thank you for the blueprint that you have laid out for this year ahead of us. We thank you for the words of the past, the years that have passed us by. And we thank you that you are the great architect, that you see everything, the end from the beginning, that you are putting every single thing into its right place. Lord, I ask that you would give us each the strength, the boldness, the insight to partner with you as you bring us into a deeper alignment with you, with our environment around us, and with those connections that you placed in our path, Lord. I also thank you for the acceleration that in due season you will cause it to happen. Lord, we thank you that we can trust you fully, that you are always faithful, that your words are always yes and amen over our lives. And so, God, I just thank you and I bless 2024. I bless every person under the sound of my voice with what this year holds for them. And I thank you for the mind-blowing ways that you are going to prove yourself real, that you long to demonstrate to those who do not know you how good, how real, and how faithful you are to them as well. So, Lord, we just make space for you to move. We let go of the things that no longer serve us, that were once tolerable but no longer in this season, and we make room for the things that we can receive from you that are your good and perfect gifts, God. So we just bless your name, Lord, and in this prayer, I seal this prayer in your blood, Jesus, remembering what you have done for us, that everything is already under our dominion with your power, with your um, with your final works. So, Lord, we just thank you. Amen.
Amen. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. This is a time that we are literally invading the enemy's territory, and we
Yes.
are going to upset the demonic on a scale that we have not before. And it's exciting because we're going to see God frustrate the plans of the enemy. We're going to
Yep.
see the enemy's schemes exposed and fall. And it's just
Absolutely.
a very exciting time to be a part of the body of Christ, a part of the prophetic move. So thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And we hope that you are blessed and have a blessed start to the new year. And we will see you next time.